workout and athletic culture just exploded. So we started to see like this shift of what heteronormative individuals are wearing and what queer individuals are wearing, right? Years back, queer individuals would do a crop top and a tight jean and, a short short. Now they're wearing oversized jackets and coats and pants and kind of pushing fashion that way. So now you see heteronormative individuals with the crop tops and the short shorts, but for a very different reason, right? They're performing for a different reason because they've worked out all pandemic and they want to show their body now. So you see these things that might have been feminine before or looked at in a different light, and now they're actually hyper masculine because they want to show off the work that they've done.
For over 25 years, WGSN has predicted consumer behaviour, forecasting future lifestyle changes. Today, we discuss how evolving masculinity is impacting current and future menswear. This shift, affecting silhouettes, materials, colours, and marketing, is here to stay. WGSN menswear strategist Isaiah Isaac joins us to explore this topic. Isaiah, welcome to your first Lives of Tomorrow. Please, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
I am Isaiah Isaac, menswear strategist. I've been working in menswear for over a decade now, and I've been at WGSN almost 3 years now, coming up on an anniversary.
So, today we're talking all about redefining masculinity. So, presume that we've got lots of listeners who, well, women for starters, so might not be properly tapped into menswear trends and those kind of things. So, talk to me a little bit about the redefining masculinity trend.
So the redefining masculinity trend is something that we've been tracking for a while now, actually, and it's basically exploring the evolution of menswear and how they're interpreting different styles that they're taking from women's wear, or how men are differently expressing themselves now, and maybe taking something that is quintessentially feminine and applying it to their personal style. So we're seeing designers do the same thing where maybe it's through color, maybe it's through fabric, but this whole evolution of what masculinity means in the current moment for the current consumer.
So let's take it back from fashion. Fashion doesn't exist in its own little vacuum. It's very much determined by macro trends and shifts that we're seeing in consumer lifestyle. So where has it come from? Why are we seeing this now manifesting it in fashion?
I really think that men have gotten to a point where they've kind of stopped policing themselves, right? So historically, there's been certain codes that men have to live by, right? But things have switched throughout society. So, for example, in the clergy, red and pink was actually a masculine color, right? But somewhere along the line, it switched to now where blue is that masculine color. So then you can start to look at things as it's really driven by the society that you're around and what is deemed important at that time. And if we really kind of go super macro of like the naturalistic, how men try to survive just in general society is performative. And you have to ask, who are they performing for? Why are they performing? Is it them performing for other men? Is it performing to get a mate? So this starts to define how they act and why they act. And then it starts to redefine what masculinity means for that individual or for that group. Men love to be in groups. They love to see other men do things and aspire to. I've actually just saw a really nice story on Substack where it was talking about men and love, and how if you really like break it down, men reserve a lot of their love for other men, their admiration, their respect, who they look up to, and then just the romantic part they would give to women in a heteronormative perspective. So it's really interesting to see that like men's inspiration or what drives them is getting the approval from other men. So as you see coming over time, what becomes important in society starts to redefine what masculinity means for them.
Amazing. Okay. So let's get into some of the practical applications. So this shift is naturally going to provide some challenges to brands. Menswear historically has been much more slow moving than women's wear. And you're maybe not, there are definitely trend plays an important part, but at that kind of mass level, you don't see the kind of fluctuations and the changes that you might see in women's wear or even kids wear or something like that. So what would you say to someone in this space in terms of ensuring that they really understand it, they can leverage this shift, and that they're going to stay relevant, but I guess also importantly appeal to we're talking about men here, but there are many different ages of men and different cultures and different countries. It's very difficult to just go, well, this is what masculinity means in this day and age.
Exactly. I think authenticity is super important here, right? Knowing who your consumer is, knowing how they like to show up, how they like to present, and then pertaining to that, right? So maybe on a mass volume level, I think my key takeaway would be color. Color is the first foray into how you can take a familiar shape, think of a blazer or a chore jacket or a carpenter pant, and start to incorporate different colorations. Like, for example, we covered in Catwalk soft utility, and soft utility really spoke about how bringing pastel colorations into workwear and utilitarian styles, kind of that juxtaposition allowed for a redefining of what masculinity looks like from that perspective. That is kind of a way where you can take something that your client loves that already works for them and introduce color. I think what we've really been seeing now is that men are so much more open to different colorations and exploring what fashion is for them. Social media obviously has sparked this as well, but even if we think back to like the pandemic, which I'm sure I'll talk about a lot in this, is it's really given men like the opportunity to just do research on their own. We have been watching Reddit and Substack and how they're asking each other, how can I dress? What can I do? So I think clients can really take away is to first look at color and look at their best sellers and inject those tiny bits of color in them, test them, see how they work out, and then you can start playing with a little bit of micro trends that is specific to your consumer and is very authentic. The consumer is educated now. There's no fooling them. So I think you can't really fake it till you make it anymore. You have to actually be specific and know who your base is.
Okay, so you said you're going to talk quite a bit about the pandemic. It comes up in some shape or form on pretty much every time I have these conversations. Or maybe a little less these days. We've got things like tariffs to talk about instead. But talk to me about how the past few years, but how a recent history is informing, evolving, and having an impact on the way that men show up.
So out of the pandemic came pajama dressing, came the supreme comfort type of feeling. So right, oversized fits, relaxation. It's because everyone was at home, everyone was on the video screen. So you might have, what I have on top, of boxer shorts on the bottom, right? So underwear's outerwear
Do you
became a
have
thing.
boxer shorts on under?
I do not. I'm in the office, so couldn't do it today. Imagine. I mean, listen, it's fashion. You can get away with a lot these days. So
Okay.
no, I'm presentable. I'm presentable. But you saw like a lot of these individuals kind of mixing and matching things that were quintessentially supposed to be into one space into another. Um, and then what happened in the pandemic is people started to focus on themselves, right? And how they could present and how they can show up. Workout and athletic culture just exploded. So a lot of men were doing workout routines and, getting more in shape. So once they were able to be outside, what they started to do was they wanted to show off their bodies, right? So we started to see like this shift of what heteronormative individuals are wearing and what queer individuals are wearing, right? So maybe years back, queer individuals would do a crop top and a tight jean and a short short. Now they're wearing oversized jackets and coats and pants and kind of pushing fashion that way. So now you see heteronormative individuals with the crop tops and the short shorts, but for a very different reason, right? They're performing for a different reason because they've worked out all pandemic and they want to show their body now. So you see these things that might have been feminine before or looked at in a different light, and now they're actually hyper masculine because they want to show off the work that they've done. So that brings us to performative male, where now you see men more or less performing for a partner, but at the same time, there's an authenticity to it because they're actually reading the books and they're looking into feminism and they actually want to show up for their partner. So you do get this little bit of a backlash to where individuals will say, okay, like they're just performing, but isn't everyone at all times, right? We're trying to show our identity and show who we are so we can attract someone that aligns with our ideals. And it's just really interesting to see how the zeitgeist kind of reacts to how men are showing up today. And the pandemic has really kind of pushed that forward because they've started to focus on themselves and who they are because they were given a chance to.
I would argue that even more recent history and even more recent innovation, so let's take the Ozempic effect, that's now
Right.
also giving rise to people with bodies that they want to show off more and arguably
Exactly.
making a slimmer body ideal more accessible in some
Yeah.
places. So you've got these very kind of macro trends, macro movements, but they're kind of filtering down and actually in this instance probably kind of or emphasizing or giving another kind of step onto
Right.
how we're seeing this in terms of the way that men dress.
100%. I think it's having so much of an effect. And you look at how fashion has exploded from a social perspective, just in terms of red carpet and social media, and everyone kind of wants to do their fit online or what I wore today. And now I'm a fashion influencer, and they see that that's popular. So,
Yeah.
they're looking into Row or to Ozempic. So yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely having an effect.
Can I pick up on something else you said?
Yeah.
You talked about Reddit and Substack, and we're often very generic in a, social media has had an impact. And of course social media has an impact on literally every aspect of our lives. But what we mean now by that has also evolved. So a few years ago maybe we'd have been referencing, well, many years ago maybe Facebook and then Instagram and then TikTok. You're now name checking, you know, not kind of niche platforms at all, but platforms that are now having more of an impact. So, talk to me a bit about those two specifically, because I find that fascinating.
I think people in general, because I won't only silo it to men, but people in general want a deeper dive, right? So think about exactly what you were saying, how social media was looked at before, right? Facebook started, it was posting online, this is my day, this is what I'm doing, this is my family, etc. And Instagram came out, it started as a creative hub. Oh, these are the photos I'm doing, this is the video I'm doing. Now it becomes lifestyle. Then we move into TikTok, videos get shorter. This is what I'm wearing, this is what happened in my day, this is me going to work. I think with the attention economy, there's always a response to it, right? So people have 20-second clips or 30-second clips, etc. I'm big into politics, and I mention that because I was watching another podcast and they were saying that politicians now have to do a 30-second bite, a 3-minute bite, and a 3-hour
Wow.
podcast, and that's
Okay.
how they're going to speak to the public and pertain to them and seem authentic. I think that's also translating to these other sites like Reddit and Substract, where yes, you have the TikToks where it's 30-second, and maybe there's an Instagram reel that's 3 minutes. But now individuals want to read and actually dive a lot deeper into what's happening and hear other people's stories where there is an anonymity to it, where they can say, okay, I kind of actually trust this more because this person isn't doing this just to get attention, just to get my like, just to get another brand deal. They're actually interested in, okay, how do I dress for work? What do I wear to a wedding? And reading these things, it's really interesting to see that they just are looking for a community. And, to bring it back to the pandemic, as we love to do, that is something that was missing from that time frame. So you're seeing a lot of these groups pop up where it's a running group or it's basketball or volleyball where people are trying to find community now, and Substack and Reddit has been that online community where they're able to find that and then find each other in real life.
Talk to me a bit about our retail experience or the shopping experience. So, how does the redefining masculinity movement show up at retail?
I think at retail, it shows up again through color, but also through details, right? So I just finished doing the buyer's briefing, key details, and a lot of what we're seeing is embroidery or jewelification, right? In terms of like the brooches and ornate maximalism, which is one of our themes, it's things that you can put on and put off, right? So it's giving them the options to put a brooch on or have a double layered, where one of the sides is a little bit more shiny or has like a luxe texture to it. Um, in retail, I think it's actually how they're merchandising it as well, right? Is they're showing it to the point where you can see that this is a directional look, but when it's a singular piece, you can actually wear it in many different ways and have that high-low perspective to it.
Okay, so we can take a little pause to get to
Mm,
know you a bit better. So these are
okay.
quick fire questions, short and
Yeah.
snappy. The first thing that comes to mind. In what is the song that you are currently playing over and over again?
Oh gosh. I think it's 12 to 12 by Somber. It's just hit me. I'm like
It's
singing it. I'm imagining myself do karaoke. There it is.
which season allows you to be the most creative with your wardrobe?
Fall. Hands
So
down
you, so
fall.
you're in,
I'm a
it's a perfect season for you
Yeah,
then.
I'm a layer king, as you can see. I love layers. So yeah, fall's the one.
Which app do you use the most?
Ooh, that's a great question. And unfortunately, I have to be honest, it's my Dexcom app. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I'm always checking my sugar. Because I took socials off of my phone. I need to have a nice little piece. I
That's
have it
a
on my iPad only. So
that is good. I like that.
yeah,
When are you most creative?
at night. And unfortunately, right before I'm going to bed, you lay your head down and you start thinking of all the things that you can do. That's how I get to sleep, thinking about how I
Okay.
can be creative.
How you be creative. And what would you say about yourself in the first 3 minutes of a TED talk?
Mm, I am a resilient individual who never backs down and never gives up and is sadistically optimistic. I always have a smile on my face, and I love to encourage people and empower them to do more.
Ah, that's nice. Okay. All right. So we're going to look to the future now. This is our job as forecasters. Can you talk to the consumer and social data linked with redefining masculinity and what you predict that is going to mean for the future?
I think it's going to mean more personalization, more identity, more authenticity, right? I just got done with an enterprise meeting and I was talking to one of our clients about how you have to have a tone of voice. You have to have a perspective now. Consumers are a lot more educated than they used to be. So when it comes to what does redefining masculinity look like I said at the top of this, is you have to see how your consumer likes to show up, right? How does he like to present himself? So what does masculinity mean for him and how you can capitalize on that, right? Can you give him colors that's going to give him an avenue to express himself? Can you give him textures and fabrics that give him the chance to show that he's actually caring about what he's wearing? Are there different types of silhouettes that he would like to work into? And you can kind of educate him and grow him into that perspective. I really think that men are going to be a lot more expressive actually in the future. They're been given the license to do it now. Social media has helped that. Data is showing us specifically from e-commerce and catwalk that designers are also working into that. And specifically with red carpet and celebrity society, you're seeing that men want to dress like that. Obviously, like, there's a macro perspective to this, as we talked about before. So that coloration and that texture, but I really think it's going to continue to evolve. And I think it's going to be more personal.
Okay. So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment.
Yeah.
I my commute into work, I change train lines, and the train line where I have to change is next to a sixth form college. So in English, that means lots of kind of 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids, and they all pile off the train so that then those of us who are carrying on to London to go to the office can get on. And everyone who comes off looks exactly the same to me.
I
So
was going to bring this up.
everybody is in a grey tracksuit pant.
Yeah.
The girls and the boys. The girls are wearing it with a crop top and a hoodie, and the boys are tending to wear it with like a windrunner jacket or something like
Yeah.
that. But it is a grey tracksuit. I mean, if you're selling those at the moment, you must be selling many, many, many pairs of it. So what we're talking about here is more expression, more individuality. If you're Gen Z at the moment, I would say that there's an awful lot of running with the crowd. So how do those two things kind of mix together?
Yeah. I think the issue of adolescence is wanting to feel like you belong, right? So it's funny that you bring that up because I was thinking about this podcast and there was a time where on Instagram it blew up that a bunch of boys that were like GCSE level um, all had the same exact haircut, right? They all looked identical. And it really kind of proved what we're seeing of how men like to be in groups. And what I was talking at the top of this of they are searching for approval. So when you're at that age of finding who you are and you're trying to find your confidence and what that looks like for you do kind of go with the crowd because you don't want to stand out because, bullying and people are going to point you out. You have to have an innate level of confidence that's a little bit psycho at that age to really stand out and be yourself. So I think it starts to come when they have their own money, when they have to start making their own lives, when they're not. I don't want to say that school is forcing it, of course it's not, but you are in a group, right? You're
Yeah.
with a certain amount of people every single day. So you're going to want to be a part of that group and feel like you belong. So I think the transition starts to come when you start to become an individual and you start to become an adult and you're
Yeah.
then able to express yourself because you're beholden to you instead of the group that you grew up with your entire life.
Yeah. So the tribe is sort of changing, that sort of that younger teen, very much tribal. And then
Yeah,
as you kind of find your way in the world, you're finding your own voice. Maybe you're also finding that through how you dress. And presumably you're coming
exactly.
up against, very different tribes. You're going into the working world. It's different
Yeah.
to the person you were doing your exams with at school.
Exactly, and you're finding your new tribe and what works for you, like, running clubs has been a very big thing, and
Yeah.
everyone's, like, has their specific way of dressing for running, so, yeah,
Yeah.
people really like groups.
Okay. So if you're a brand and we've been talking, so and it's very pertinent to this conversation we've just had right now. But if we go back to redefining masculinity, more expression, more color, those kind of things, you've probably got a core consumer who isn't necessarily dressing that way at the moment. Again, how do you balance that? You don't want to alienate that core consumer, but you don't want to lose that emerging group either.
Yeah, I think not alienating them is key here. You want to work towards what they like and what they do. So again, familiar shapes, familiar styles, and then doing tiny little bits of detail, right? Maybe it's a inside of like a sartorial traditional perspective, maybe it's the lining or the taping in the lining has a little bit of a pop of color. Maybe it's like on the neck, right? Maybe the black polo that you're doing has a lighter blue on the tipping of it, right? So tiny little details that you can kind of introduce to them that lets them express themselves in a tiny bit of way where it's not so jarring. It's not so like, oh my gosh, now it's a hot pink polo. I'm not going to buy that. Well, of course not. You don't want to introduce color to where it's shocking. You want to really start testing those ideas and testing those textures, right? As I was talking to the client before, texture is a big thing. So introducing texture and giving that little bit of quality to a normal item, right? A classic perennial item gives them an avenue to look, oh, okay, there's a difference here. There's something different that I can work into. And then once you see how they react to that and get a good business read on it, then you can start to introduce them to a little bit more things if that works for your consumer. I think the real key takeaway here is to know who your consumer is. And if that's not right for him, if you don't need to redefine what masculinity means for
Yeah.
him, then don't.
Okay. Where are you seeing the most success in terms of, and not giving me specific brands actually, but where men are being well serviced at the moment? Are there, I mean, we've talked a little bit about different social media platforms, but where are men finding a voice right now that they can be inspired by? Because it's a really big topic. You've got a lot of toxic voices out there.
Yeah.
Give me some positivity on that front.
Yeah. Where are men finding a voice? I think they're trying to look to movie stars, and that gets a bit hard, right? Because then you fall in love with the character, and then you see that
Mm,
character outside of the movie, and you're like, okay, do I like their personal style, right? So, for example, Timothy Chalamet, Jeremy Allen White, Austin Butler, these type of individuals. There's another one I can't remember his name. He's super tall. Jacob Elordi. They're looking to individuals like this that are showing a different way to dress that is attractive to women, is attractive to their partner but still has an aspirational feel to it, right? So there's like some optimism in them having something to aspire to without having to look to toxic masculinity, if we're still calling it that, like the Andrew Tates of the world or so on and so forth, right? Of course, that's going to reach who it reaches and affect them in the way that it does, but there is a lot of optimism and a lot of great role models out there that are speaking to just being authentic to who you are.
there's a journalist who I rate so highly, read everything she writes, called Marina Hyde, who writes for The Guardian in the UK. And she normally does kind of opinion columns, but she did an interview with Glenn Powell recently.
Oh, nice.
And she was talking about he's like an old Hollywood star, but the way that he acts, I mean, literally acts, but also behaves as an individual is very reminiscent of those old kind of school Hollywood stars that have sort of died out. And that maybe this is, part of resurgence because we are looking for more positive role models. So,
I think so.
yeah, you're on something there.
Yeah, I think we need it, and I think there's a desire for it, so it's good that it's
Yeah.
out there.
So, your big prediction, putting you on the spot, what are the changes that we're going to see in menswear in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think there is going to be a bigger push to be sartorial, to be a little bit more buttoned up. And there's also going to be a personalized basics. We've been seeing a lot of brands that are smaller and they're redefining what a basic is, what that elevated basic means to them. So I think there's going to be that divide of what does it look like to be just a regular Joe Schmo and how you dress that way. And then how do you show up in the sartorial world? I think it's going to explode. We've been seeing a lot with double breasted blazers, so this buttoned up feel, this higher stance is happening, and I think it's actually pretty cool. We're getting back to suiting. We've kind of gotten a little bit away from that. It's been very relaxed, sweatshirt, this, that. I like that there's going to be a little bit more of a buttoned up perspective.
I think that it's, and it comes back to, flows through everything we're talking about and everything we do at WGSN. There's a macro trend shift. People are getting
Yeah,
back into offices. The
yeah,
job market is tough. People have got to show up in a certain way. And so you're
exactly.
seeing that impact as well. But then there is also the natural kind of shift, which is we have been so comfortable in what we're wearing for so long. For me, what's interesting is now we're requiring that, but we still want it to feel good. So, yeah, we want to be buttoned up and we want to look smart, but we don't want to feel constricted as a consequence. And I'm talking for, men and women here that, we want to look a certain way, we want to feel a certain way, and the two things have got to come together. And, we won't sort of sacrifice comfort anymore because our bodies and minds are just trained that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to happen to where it'll be stuffy. And I think I was talking with a friend about how, there used to be like an old saying that like, fashion is pain or pain is fashion, something like that. That is never going to ever come back. People must be comfortable. So, in menswear specifically, we've been seeing relaxed suiting and relaxed formal. So that's where that is going to meet where they want to be comfortable, but they still want to look really good. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
So just to finish things off, we always ask
Yeah.
this question: are you more anxious or hopeful and positive about the future?
I'm very hopeful and positive. I think things happen in extremes and also things happen in cycles. And it's just like human emotions, right? We often think micro, but we also always think macro. And if you even look at the earth as an organism, right? Like we can kind of compare it to how humans act. It runs a fever, so that's climate change, right? The seasons change, just like our moods change. I think things are always going to continue to kind of move around, and things may be daunting, things may be changing, but the extreme is going to happen and it's going to get really, really good. I can feel it. And I think it's going to stay that way for a while, to be honest with you.
A big thank you to Isaiah Isaac, menswear strategist at WGSN. Please check out our other podcast, Create Tomorrow, with my amazing colleague, Cassandra Napoli. But that's a thank you for me for now. I'll return with a new episode of Lives of Tomorrow in 14 days. My name's Carla Buzasi. I'm the CEO of WGSN, and I'll see you next time.